Hello everybody, this is Mr. Nardelli. Tonight I'm going to be talking to you about radical expressions. Radical expressions mean they're kind of like the reverse of square roots. So some of the rules you need to be aware of, if I have the square root of two numbers under the radical sign, I can split them into their own separate radical signs. Same thing going backwards, if I have two numbers underneath their own separate radical signs, I can put them under a single radical sign. Also, if I'm taking the square root of an even number, I just divide that exponent by 2. In this example, the square root of square root of x squared is x. Same thing as if I had the square root of x to the 8th power would be 8 divided by 2 is 4, or x to the 4th power. Now, if I have the square root of an odd power, what I need to do is break that up into 1 less than that odd power times 1. Because remember, 4 plus 1 is 5. Now I can take the square root of the even, put it on the outside, and the square root of the x to the first power stays under the radical. Okay, so let's scroll down a little bit and let's work on this simplifying. So if I wanted to simplify 25x to the third power. 25 is a perfect square, so I would leave that under the radical, and I would break my x to the third into x to the 2 times x. Now, I can take the square root of 25, which is 5. I can take the square root of x to the second, which is x. I can't take the square root of this x, so I'm going to leave it under the radical, and my simplified answer is 5x square root of x. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit. Let's take this one. I'm just going to insert a box real quick. Let's say I have simplify square root of 72 x to the 7th y to the 4th. Now 72 is not a perfect square. So what I'm going to do is break it into factors where I can find a perfect square. You might have thought 9 times 8, and yes, that would work, but if I take a higher one, 36 times 2, my 36 is a perfect square. Now my x to the 7th is an odd exponent, so I'm going to break it up into x to the 6th times x. And my x to the 4th is even, so I'm going to keep it that way. Now everything under the radical, I'll take the square roots of stuff that I can take the square roots of. For example, square root of 36 is 6. Square root of x to the 6th is x to the 3rd. Square root of y to the 4th is y to the 2nd. What's left under the radical is 2 and x. So my answer is 6x to the 3rd, y to the 2nd, square root of 2x. Okay, now when I'm multiplying radical expressions, you might look at this and panic a little, but please don't. The problem says square root of 30x to the 3rd y to the 4th times square root of 6x squared y to the 5th. Okay, first thing to do is just put everything under the radical sign and multiply it. So I did 30 times 6 to get 180. I did x to the 3rd times x to the 2nd to give me x to the 5th. And I did y to the 4th times y to the 5th to give me y to the 9th. Okay, now I've got one whole thing, and I'm going to break them up into numbers that will work for me. 180 can be broken up into two factors, 36 and 5. I broke it up into that because 36 is a good perfect square. X to the 5th gets broken into x to the 4th times x. Y to the 9th gets broken into y to the 8th times y. Now I can take the square root of certain things. The square root of 36 is 6. Square root of x to the 4th is x to the 2nd. Square root of y to the 8th is y to the 4th. And my 5 and x and y are left underneath. So my answer is 6x to the 2nd, y to the 4th, times the square root of 5xy. If you need anything, email me at nardelli.efsc@gmail.com. Thanks.